Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks especially to our guests, Christina Yamanaka-Vu, Brittany Mondragon, and Matt Patino for joining us. And thanks to everybody who's joining us on Zoom. We're going to be talking today about teaching at community colleges. I think pretty specific to teaching at California community colleges, but also we'll talk, we can talk about that more broadly if anybody has questions. And I'll be sharing a few resources in the chat as we go. And I'll also invite our guests if they have any thoughts or any resources that they'd like to share. This is a combined group of BA students and MA students here at CSUSB, and I think some graduates, some graduates of the program as well. So very quickly, I'll introduce our guests. Matt Patino is a graduate of our MA program here at CSUSB, and he is now teaching as an adjunct instructor in the Crafton Hills Community College, where he got his educational start as well. Brittany Mondragon, also a graduate of our CSUSB MA program. All kind of interesting. I think both of you came to us as undergrads from different programs and joined us as MA students here. A lot of our MA students are CSUSB undergrads, but both of you joined us from other undergrad programs. Brittany graduated from our MA program and is now teaching at the Mount San Jacinto Community College, and I believe at another school as well. Is that right, Brittany?
Yes, at RCC. I'm what they call right now a freeway flyer. So I teach at multiple different campuses and a little bit of online as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
So we'll get into that a little bit more, I'm sure, in the discussion.
Yes. Thank you. And finally, Christina Yamanaka-Vu, who teaches at the Mount San Jacinto Community College as well, and has joined us several times for similar sessions like this. So I'm very, very grateful for Christina joining us. Thanks, Christina. Thanks, Brittany. Thanks, Matt. We may be joined a little bit later by Oceana Collins. I think she's going to be joining us today as well from College of the Desert. So I'll keep an eye on the waiting room and on the chat. And I'll turn it over to our outstanding guests. Please, you can jump in with a quick hello, and or we can go to questions and discussion right away.
All right, I'll be the brave one. Well, hello, everyone. Dr. Murray did a great job introducing myself already, but just a friendly hello to everyone. I'll give a little bit more background about myself. I started off actually, I think just like you, Matt, if I recall. So I started off at Crafton Hills College as well, and I got my AA there. And I did some tutoring on the side, which really helped prepare me for teaching as well. We can go into that in more detail later. And then I transferred over to the University of Redlands, where I got my bachelor's degree in history. And then I also got my first master's degree in geographic information systems at the University of Redlands as well. And I was looking at using history and GIS together with my project, with my thesis. And then from there, I was really getting that itch of wanting to teach history. That was really my passion, was history. So I ended up meeting Dr. Murray at an SI conference. And for those who don't know, that's supplemental instruction. And we started chatting, and he said, hey, did you know that San Bernardino is going to open up a MA program for history? And we started talking. I was like, yep, that's it. That's where I'm going. And I ended up applying the first year that the program opened, and then graduated shortly after. And since then, I've been teaching at Mount San Jacinto College and Riverside City College as well. So that's it. That's it for me. I don't know.
Matt, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Very, very close to Brittany's journey. I also started at Crafton, since we just started recording. Also started at Crafton. I was a writing tutor at Crafton as well, before transferring to the University of Redlands, where I tutored yet again, and then came to the master's program at Cal State. But instead of tutoring at Cal State, I was an SI leader. all of which kind of helped me land my position here at Crafton. I'll give it over to Christina, I guess.
Hi, everyone. So thank you very much to Dr. Murray for inviting me to come and speak with you all today. Just a little bit of background about myself. I started my educational career as an undergraduate at UCLA. Before I started my freshman year, though, I was taking classes at community college down in San Diego, which were some of the best classes I took in college. I didn't actually start as a history major. It's something I came into my junior year. And it was a very hard move to go from what I thought was going to be a really practical major with a real career focus to something that I knew I just loved and was completely passionate about. And I loved almost every single class that I took in history, but wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it. And so it was a little bit scary. I was paying for college, was working full time while I was in school. But I also believed that if I was paying for my own education, I should be learning something that I was really interested in pursuing. And then I took a year off. I was in summer intern, and then later I was lucky enough to get a job at the Getty Center. And then I came back to UCLA for graduate school, where I obtained my master's degree. I passed my oral exams, and so I was a PhD candidate. Was living out in Tokyo, where I was doing some dissertation research, and I got a call from my mom, who told me, hey, there's this place called Mount San Jacinto College that's hiring. Would you be interested in applying? So I actually wound up moving from Tokyo back to Menifee, where I currently live. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, I started out part-time and was lucky enough to get a full-time job. So I've been here ever since.
Thanks, everybody, for getting us started. Thanks, Christina and Matt and Brittany. I just shared the link to our supplemental instruction because both Brittany and Matt noted the supplemental instruction and tutoring. I think that is a really good chance for you, for everybody here as a BA or as an MA student, to get in the classroom and to get a sense of that teaching dynamic. Of course, every teaching situation is going to be, I think, considerably different, but it is a nice opportunity for you to get a feeling for teaching and thinking about how you put teaching materials together, which you're sometimes expected to do in supplemental instruction, and how you prepare for that sort of classroom encounter. Okay, well, one of the themes, and I want to invite everybody to please jump into the chat or raise your hand as you have questions. One of the themes that we all explore in this sort of series, this Careers for History Majors series, and Christina brought up this idea that history majors are often sort of looking at, thinking about careers, because it's not quite a given in terms of what career that you're going to head into, the way perhaps a pre-med or a social work degree might have a clear vocational direction. But one question we often think about in the series is, what do you wish you'd known when you were a BA or an MA student? And that's very recent for Matt and Brittany. Of course, you guys were both MA students in the last couple of years. So your comrades here are, as I said, they're finishing up their first year. Some of them are finishing up their second year. Thinking about different career paths. But to all three of you, to Christina, Brittany, and Matt, what do you wish you'd known when you were either a BA student or an MA student, or in your case, a PhD candidate, Christina? That in terms of preparing yourself for the job market or for the classroom, the work to come. Anybody have any thoughts jump to mind on that prompt?
I'll mention something. So this is like act 3 for me, career-wise. So when I started back to school, it was fully with the intention that I wanted to teach at a community college level. And although certain people, Jeremy, have been trying to talk me into a PhD. I still haven't decided if that's the route I'm going to go, Jeremy. With that in mind, already knowing that community college was where I wanted to go, I kind of tailored my educational experience to that, which is why I tutored, which is why I did supplemental instruction. One thing, though, that stuck out came from a professor I had at Redlands, who mentioned that they don't teach professors how to teach. And so knowing that, when the opportunity to take the 5700 class with Michelle Lorimer came up, I jumped at it. I had classroom experience. I've been a professional trainer in the past, but developing a curriculum like that is very different than developing an academic curriculum. So taking Dr. Lorimer's class, even though it's geared towards K-12, still taught me how to break down what a lesson plan should look like, what my goal should look like at the end of the semester, and really kind of how to tailor a class that's not going to look the same. I teach 3 classes now. 2 of them are dual enrollment classes, and one is a traditional first year. Those dual enrollment classes, one of them meets 3 times a week, the other 4. My traditional class meets twice a week. So tailoring the lecture, kind of timing things out, making sure that, I'm keeping everything straight and keeping everybody right on the same path, because 2 of the classes are 101 classes, and not changing things between them. It's the curriculum is the same. It's just how to tailor the delivery and the time management.
I would echo what Matt has suggested about thinking about opportunities that you can create for yourself in terms of getting that classroom experience. I never thought about this, but even as an undergraduate student, there are opportunities to give presentations, even in lecture classes. It might be through a project, a thesis that you're writing. It could be that you're an honor student and that you're engaging in a research. And you could ask your professor if it's possible if you deliver this to your class. And maybe it's only a 12-minute presentation, but it gives you a feel for what it would be like to be behind the podium. In addition to that supplemental instruction or the tutoring experience, having that real experience of standing in front of a group of students who may not know the subject that you're about to teach, it really kind of helps you dive into what it's like to be an instructor. I think for me, I never imagined myself as a teacher. When I was in graduate school, I just saw myself more as predominantly interested in research. And it was through the process of getting exposed to those experiences, like serving as a TA for 2 years, and every year was 3 different classes. And having that experience of having to lead my own discussion sections, having to come up with assignments and a lesson plan. If you have an opportunity of serving as a TA while you're in a graduate program, like a PhD program, it's a wonderful chance to really see how you feel about being in front of students. When I lived in Japan, I supplemented my income by teaching English as a second language to a variety of different age groups. So it ranged from really young kids all the way up to adults. And that really taught me a lot about teaching. And I wasn't even teaching about history, but I was teaching in a manner that was really challenging for me to kind of figure out how can I deliver a lesson plan to different age groups who have different purposes for being in the classroom setting. So seeing what you can do to expose yourself to those kind of teaching opportunities, I think is really important, even if you don't necessarily see yourself as maybe really wanting to be a teacher, but having that experience either at the undergraduate or graduate school level or outside the classroom in the communities that you're a part of, I think can be really helpful in helping you decide what's going to be the best career trajectory for yourself.
Great. And then I'll just piggyback off of what Matt and Christina have already said. Certainly, if you are thinking of going into teaching, start getting exposed to what it's like teaching, either by going into tutoring or supplemental instruction, or as Christina mentioned, if you are in honors or you have an opportunity to maybe attend a conference or present your research, take those opportunities. This is just a little bit about me. When I was in high school, I was petrified of public speaking. I could not talk in front of anybody. I would cry. I got that from my mom. She can't talk in front of anybody. And so it took a while for me to get comfortable in order to speak and lecture and talk in front of a class of 25 to 45 people, depending on where you're teaching at. And again, I think it was through tutoring that I actually started breaking ground and seeing some personal growth and being able to communicate with peers and other students, go and present my research. Like Christina had mentioned, I actually had this opportunity to present some research that I had done for one of my undergrad classes, actually in English, but it was history related. And it was an 18th century literature class. And my professor really loved my work and said, hey, I think you should go present this at a conference for undergrads. And so I attended that, and really just taking that opportunity to see if that's something that you enjoy doing, talking in front of students and telling people, you know, knowledge they never heard before, how to facilitate, and learning skills like that are definitely essential. Another thing I wanted to highlight, though, is what Matt said about professors aren't trained on how to teach. That's certainly true, I would say, to a certain extent. When you're coming in and maybe you've just gotten a master's degree or your PhD and you haven't quite taught in the classroom yet, it can be very intimidating trying to create those curriculums and all of that material. Now, ideally, when you go in for your degree, or I'm sorry, for your job, you have experience teaching a little bit, whether that's through tutoring or SI. But another component of that is, do you have equity training and culturally relevant training as well, particularly for history majors? This is absolutely critical. And so if you have any opportunity to take courses that are related to equity or cultural relevancy, and for me, I had a great opportunity becoming a tutor and actually getting some of that training. Now, it wasn't necessarily what faculty get, but it was an introductory kind of course, if you will, to that information. So when I went for those first interviews for teaching and becoming a professor, I was being able to use some of that lingo and some of that knowledge to help me get the job. So that's just another thing that I wanted to add on there.
That's great. Thank you, Paul. That was a lot to think about. And I think I agree, it's a good point about not sort of learning how to teach, and there are some exceptions, as you noted, Matt. Both of our undergrads and our grads should know that 5700 class is it's a wonderful elective for our MA students. For those of you who are on the CSET waiver teaching track, I think it's a requirement. I believe it's a requirement if you want that waiver. But Professor Lorimer is terrific. She's the one who usually teaches that class. And she has really wide connections within the region in terms of teaching. I also think that the only other thing I'd add to that, because our guests gave really terrific answers, is keep all of your syllabi. Whether you love the class or, to put it mildly, don't love the class. And remember what made you love the class or not love the class. But keep your syllabi. I think one thing I regret is not having the syllabi for every single class I ever took. I have a bunch of them, but I wish I had every single one. I wish I had all those syllabi. Because once you make a syllabus yourself and are very, very proud of the work that you've done, you'll recognize how much goes into that, how much of yourself goes into that document, which is a kind of contract between you and the students. And a lot makes its way in there. So think about what the instructor did to put that document together. And think about form as well as content. Just like Brittany said, there was a class that wasn't even precisely within a history department, although it had a historical element to it. So if you love a class, for me, it was a Chinese language class. As a first year student at SUNY Albany, I walked into the class and was just blown away by the way the class was conducted, and it was really exciting and really fun. So I came to my field through language, but it was the form of how the instructor was leading the class, how he shaped the syllabus that made it so much fun to be in the classroom. And so exciting to do that learning. So think about form as well as content, and look at what your instructors are doing in your various classes, and think about it. Think about how they've structured the class, especially the ones that you do like. Think about what goes into that, what kind of thought and planning goes into that. I shared in the chat a long-term, I don't know how long we've been working on this document, but a cumulative future history teachers document, history and social science teachers, with lots that apply to the 7 to 12 level, but also several sessions that also are covering community college teaching. One from just this past March 2023. And I'll link this one as well. But there are a lot of things in there that are common to what we're discussing here as well. I was lucky actually at UCSD. I just had my advisor, he just ditched. And he said, "You can have my class, I'm out of here." He went to China for the year and he just gave me his class. I didn't really have a choice in the matter. I'm really glad that happened, but talk about, sort of kids talk about their parents throwing them into the deep end of the swimming pool. That was basically what happened to me I think it was in my 5th year. But that experience that's one way to do it. I don't know if it's the best way to do it, but it's one way to do it. And then the other thing is just collect all these materials, and you'll find soon that you're generating your own pedagogy, which you're going to need, by the way. An articulated teaching statement or pedagogy statement. People will frame it in different ways, but Brittany touched on something that's very important there, and that is thinking about cultural factors, things related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how you think about the classwork, the classroom in those terms. So the more materials you have to go off from other people that you admire or maybe don't admire, or would see things differently from, the more you're going to have a chance to do that. Whoa, did we lose? Oops. Sorry. Sorry, I just went to a blank screen there. We don't have anybody in the chat. I'm kind of vamping here for a minute, but who wants to jump in and move us on to another topic? Anybody with any questions? I know a lot of people have a really clear sense that this is what I want to do. They come into the MA program. Daniel, congratulations, just accepted into the MA program starting in the fall. Jump in, please.
Hey, Dr. Murray, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I'm very excited to join the program this fall. So I just have a question for Christina or Dr. Yamanaka. Sorry. Yeah, show respect. My question is, well, before I ask this question, have you ever taught at a university before as a part-time or full-time professor, or you've only worked at community colleges?
I've only worked at community college. I did TA, like I said, I think for 2, maybe 3 years total at UCLA when I was a graduate student. I completely concur with some of the remarks that Dr. Murray made earlier, which is to keep your syllabi, but to also keep, if you are a TA, to keep everything that you did, because you might be able to repackage some of it down the road, and to try to teach or to TA and to take classes in a huge variety of courses, because that's going to allow you a foundation to build from as you're teaching classes. I think the one thing is if you do wind up teaching at community colleges compared to a 4-year institution, you most likely are going to have to teach US history or world history. Those are the bread and butter courses of community colleges, and almost every job that's out there, there's going to be some sort of expectation that you're teaching those core classes. And you may be lucky enough to also teach a specialty course that might align with your own research background and disciplinary interests. But I would just say, to kind of go back to the previous question of what I wish I had known, to be prepared to teach classes in US and in world history, because that is really the foundation for community college. But no, to go back to your question, I didn't teach at it as in the main instructor for a class. I've only taught at community college.
Okay, cool. Well, you just answered the following question I was going to ask, which is like, what is the difference between teaching at a community college and teaching at a, 4-year university, CSU, UC, or private? You kind of answered at that point, so I do appreciate that. Another question. So is it true? I've done a lot of research recently, online forums and all that. Is it true that's highly unlikely to get a full-time faculty position with just a master's at a community college?
It will really depend. Well, they'll have the minimum qualifications is a master's degree at our institution. It doesn't mean that we're only looking for people that have a PhD. Certainly some of the people who might apply for a full-time position at our college have PhDs. There's others who only have master's degrees, but have teaching experience beyond that. So one of the things you can look at is when you are looking at a full-time position, to look really, really closely at what they're asking for, to make sure that your resume, that your CV, that the all the materials that you submit for that job really reflect and answer directly every single sort of component that is listed on the preferred qualifications for that position. Typically, every time a job has fallen at our institution, the MA is the requirement, and then we're looking for teaching experience beyond that. And there has been a real mix of who actually applies.
Awesome. All right. Sounds good. Thank you very much for that answer. Yeah. Unfortunately, I haven't had any teaching experience since like 2016 when I was tutoring it was 4th and 5th graders. But, thankfully, I think I just heard Dr. Murray state that I can take that 5700 class as an elective. Is that correct, Dr. Murray?
It is, and you're gonna have opportunities as an MA student to do, they're not TA work in the ways that Professor Yamanaka-Vu did, but you are going to be able to serve as an ISA, grading and helping with clerical duties, and you're going to have an opportunity to do SI work, supplemental instruction work, which I sent the link to there. And I know Matt did that while he was an MA student. Brittany, did you do that as well as an MA student?
No, I was preoccupied with the journal.
That's right.
And another job.
That's right. Well, I mean, speaking of that, the CV, I'm sure the folks, Christina and others at MSJC saw that you had multiple publications and with an award-winning student journal. So that's another thing to consider. But you will have opportunities, Daniel, to do that kind of work. One thing that Christina noted that I think has come up actually over the last 6 events we've done in this series, talking about state parks, national parks, museums, archives, teaching, 7 to 12 level, all these different career opportunities. I think that's really important, and it came up again here, is this key aspect of fit. And that is something that you can tailor in your application process. Don't just look at your application and say, I'm not a fit. Really think about how you could be a fit and how you may be a fit, because there's a big difference between people who show up at a job application and sort of burnish their credentials and are ready to say how excellent and wonderful they are in a sort of freestanding way. And those who can do that and can say, this is why I'm a good fit for this particular position, based on the public advertisement, but then maybe digging a little bit deeper and learning about the institution and learning about the kind of work, the student population, and all those kind of things. Now, this goes for all of the last 6 events that we've done in this series, and it's a really, really important thing. I say this because it's something I wish I had known when I was going on the job market at various times. I made some big fumbles in interviews and that kind of thing because I was applying to many positions, and just a little bit of extra work would have prepared me, I think, for those interviews. A little bit of sort of recon to say what is that institution all about? maybe you can even find out who specifically you're going to be talking to in the interview. So I just wanted to reiterate that what Christina just said as a really common theme that we've seen, and a really, really important one. Don't forget it. Don't forget it when you go on the job market. It will set you apart from others who are applying to the same position. So I think that's a really excellent point. Thanks for those questions, Daniel.
Of course, no problem. Thank you very much for your answers. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Others on other themes. Chelsea, please jump in.
I was just curious how much opportunity you have outside of teaching, besides teaching, to continue your research through the institution in terms of like funding and that kind of thing.
Christina, not to throw you under the bus for this one, but since Matt and I are so young in our teaching experience, you probably could talk a little bit more about sabbatical and things like that, probably better than either of us could.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of, well, first of all, community college, typically the expectation is that you do not have to publish, which sets it apart from, say, working at a Cal State or a UC or a major R1 institution. But it is not frowned upon. In fact, it's strongly encouraged. And in fact, it's required that you stay active and on top of sort of the latest developments in your field. So we do see a number of our own faculty at our institution who continue to publish, even though they're holding full-time jobs. They find that time in part because they balance, that their teaching course load with the time that they're devoting to research. And so they may not be publishing like a book a year, like you might see with some faculty at major research institutions or every couple of years, or an article every year, but they are actively publishing. I would also say that even if you're not publishing your own research, there is opportunities for still engaging in research through seminars. And some institutions have seminar courses where the topic changes and you might be invited to give a guest presentation in that course, and that'll allow you to actually engage in research that semester to present. The other is, as Brittany mentioned, for faculty who need that time off to complete the writing or to do the research, you can take a sabbatical. And at our institution, I believe it's once every 10 years or so that you are up for sabbatical. I think the other thing I would just mention is that a lot of folks, and Brittany mentioned conferences before, most faculty will participate in conference or will attend conferences, and in some faculty will actually give presentations at conferences for different purposes. It might be connected to their research. It also might be connected to teaching itself. So there are folks who are actually doing research on teaching. And there's a number of faculty members at our institution who've gone on to get either their PhD or more commonly their EDD while they're teaching a full load of courses. I guess I would also echo something that Dr. Murray said earlier, which is if at all possible, and maybe I'm biased, but I think it's fantastic to have that opportunity of actually going through a PhD program, because you're going to have that opportunity of taking these wealth of courses, even if you don't wind up finishing. And I hope everyone who starts the program does. You're going to be able to bring those experiences with you into the classroom. And that ability to continue to take classes above and beyond a MA, to do your own research, will just make your courses and the classes you teach that much richer. But if you don't have an opportunity to go into a PhD program, the MA, again, will prepare you well, in terms of teaching at community college. So I guess that would be my answer in terms of the publishing opportunities at the 2-year level.
I would like to maybe put in a plug also for the American Historical Association, the AHA. For those of you that are students, you can join AHA, and it's a reduced membership fee to join. But they're always soliciting papers for presentation. They're always looking for some involvement, and there are subgroups. So it's not just at the national level. You may be presenting just to the West Coast or to the Pacific. And if you're really interested in joining, I know the Pacific group They have their conferences coming up in Hawaii in July. Oh, gee, wouldn't that be difficult to have to do? So, there's always an opportunity, and it brings me to something else that I kind of wanted to touch on, and that is networking. I would not have the job at Crafton had I not already had a working relationship with the department chair there. So I think that's really super important too. You will discover this is a very small community, especially here in the Inland Empire. You may not know the person, but in very short order, you will learn names and you will see them pop up over and over again. And sometimes it's worth reaching out to that person because you don't know if they may not be able to facilitate a meeting for you somewhere down the road.
If I can echo what Matt said, I know this isn't quite answering Chelsea's original question, but that idea of networking is extremely important at all stages of life. It does not matter what career, if you're a student or, the president of the United States, I don't think it matters. You have to have this network and mentorship and being able to go and ask somebody for a letter of recommendation or certain opportunities and really create that network. I cannot tell you how many times I've already had students ask me for letters of recommendation, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I don't really quite recall you. And they go, oh, I took your summer class online back 2 years ago, and I got an A. And I'm like, that's wonderful, but all I can really write about is that student had gotten an A and I didn't really get to interact with them. If that means going to office hours and talking to the instructor, if that's, going and attending events or really shining in class and asking questions or staying after class, just really start networking with your instructors and other people that you admire and really create that connection because they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to open doors for you and get you some of those opportunities, or at least let you know of certain opportunities that are going to be coming at you, whether that's a conference, whether that's maybe a new program that's opening up, maybe it's even just some books that they found and they go, hey, you're really fascinated with this. Here are some new publications that came out. You need a letter of recommendation. Here you go. Or I saw this job opportunity or this internship. So network. It's really, really important, especially for undergrads and master's students and PhD students. But I think all students, it's really important to know, I would say at least 3 professors that you can reach out to for information.
Thanks all. Those are great replies to keep us moving. And we got about 15 minutes or so. So if you're listening in, you have some burning questions, this is your chance. We've got 15, maybe 20 minutes to the bottom of the hour, and I don't want to keep our guests beyond that. But I know many of our students are really thinking about teaching at the community college, and they had that as a target in joining the MA program. It is very well suited to that. So those of you in the MA program, it is really well suited to that. You don't have to go through the credentials program. You can, but you don't have to. It's not required. So you're getting a lot of content, but I think something applies, and I wonder what I found this in my own work. The graduate experience is very much content related, and we were talking about form and the importance of learning about the classroom and how to teach. I've heard the expression from many of the 7 to 12 teachers who come in and say, you're not just teaching content, you're teaching students. And I think that's important as well. I found that here at Cal State, that's very much the case. And I wonder what you all think about that in terms of coming in, you sort of think something's going to happen in the classroom, and then you realize something else needs to happen on that day because you need to do ABC before you can do the XYZ. But that idea of teaching students and encountering students where they are and getting them eventually to where you want them to be in terms of their mastery and their understanding. Do you agree with that? Does that seem to ring true in terms of teaching both content and students, and not forgetting that you're teaching students?
I would 100% agree with that. I think that sometimes having almost no lesson plan can, not to say that you shouldn't have a lesson plan, but sometimes like not having a loose lesson plan can make for the best classes, because it allows you to move and to kind of shift gears depending on what the needs of the class are in that given moment. And I think that one of the things that differentiates teaching at the community college level is you have students of a wide range of abilities who are coming into the classroom, some of whom who have been away from school. They may have raised their kids and now it's their time to come back to school. We also have people who are coming straight out of high school. Some are high school students. There are sophomores in high school, they're juniors in high school. Other students who perhaps didn't get into a four-year institution or who couldn't afford to go directly into a four-year school. So they're here at community college and they're sort of reshifting their mindset about what college should be. So you have these wide sort of life experiences that are being brought into the classroom, along with a wide range of skill sets. And so what you think is going to be like the perfect lesson plan turns out to be completely not what your students need. And so you have to adjust sometimes. And even the same exact subject matter between classes, it can vary in terms of the thought process of how you can most effectively deliver it, where maybe you need more small group work, or maybe you need more interactive activities versus other classes where they really prefer to have that kind of straightforward lecture style. And so it's finding that balance of what's going to work most effectively for your students. So I think that would be my thought about kind of community college classrooms and being flexible with the way you approach courses, and even your own mindset, giving yourself that chance to evolve as a teacher. The way I started out like so many years ago is really different than the way I teach my classes today.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add on a little bit, only because this just happened to me last week. The question came up, and this is a class where I have a student who's my age, and I have students that are fresh out of high school, and I like Christina was saying, I have a couple of students that came from four-year schools and came back. So this wide range demographically, and the conversation we were talking about, this is Cold War era that I'm talking about. I was talking about bomb drills and stuff like that. And one of the younger students mentioned, isn't this the same thing as going through active shooter drills? And that touched off this great conversation that brought history to, they were able to equate history to something tangible they could grab hold of. And that just kind of spun off into this whole other discussion of what political climate today versus the Cold War. And so it really, like Christina said, sometimes having a loose lesson plan for the day is just the best way to go, because there was so much engagement out of the group, because they could see it. It was something that they could identify with.
Thank you, Matt. So one thing that I have noticed is I like to, I guess I want to call it teaching on the fly, if you will. I certainly have a lesson plan, but I know that as soon as I walk into that door, that lesson plan is going to kind of go out the window a little bit. There's going to be certain elements of it that I certainly maintain, but for example, I have a couple of classes, and this actually happened today, where the students start asking so many wonderful questions that just completely veer off topic to what you originally were planning. And they're great questions. They create these wonderful discussions, kind of like what Matt had said about the active shooting drills and the Cold War bomb drills. And sometimes you want to nurture that and what they're interested in. And one class might be interested in it, and then the other class not so much. And so I see this happen quite frequently. I certainly still have like a guiding lesson plan, but to know that, you know what, we might be skipping this video and I might be finding, something else, or we might break up into discussion groups. and do more of a hands-on activity is really important, because sometimes you will find, hey, I've been talking for a while, and you start seeing like the phones get pulled out, or like they're all looking down, and you're like, okay, I need to spice this up a little bit. So you kind of come up with an activity on the fly, like I said, or break them up into groups, have them write on the whiteboard. And you might not have originally planned that, but you really have to kind of read the room, if you will. And I find what's really important in terms of reading the room is actually creating that very active learning community very early on in the semester. So I'm sure many of us can recall professors that would come in and just lecture 24/7, and that's all they did. And so when they did ask, hey, go into breakout groups and stuff, you're like, what am I supposed to do? We've never done this before. This is totally new. Versus really setting that stage early on in the classroom and saying, hey, this is going to be a very active classroom. We're going to be having discussion groups. We're going to be doing things up on the whiteboard. We might be playing games and things like that. I find to be very, very essential in like maintaining a really good learning environment. And again, a lot of that sometimes happens somewhat on the fly too. So just 2 weeks ago, I had some students, they kind of seemed a little bit bored. They're waiting for spring break. And I said, you know what? We've been watching this video. I'm just going to break us up into groups. And then I want you guys to come up with some notes relating to these topics. I wrote them up on the board, gave them some post-it notes, and then they had to go out and like put some sticky notes up on the board, and just kind of maintaining that activeness in their learning, I think has been really important.
Thanks, Brittany. And then I see Christian has a nitty-gritty question in the chat that we'll get to in just a second. But I just wanted to add on also to what Matt and Brittany and Christina were saying. Christina noted evolving as a teacher. This is a difficult thing to conceptualize. It's especially difficult for young people who are bursting with ideas, and you start to get these really clear ideas of exactly what you want to do, and you try it, and maybe it works, but then the next time you do it, it doesn't work, and you think, well, where am I now? But as Christina noted, committing to this idea that you will evolve as a teacher, it can be a difficult thing to do. It can be a difficult idea to accept that you will do this better next year. You know, to me, it takes pressure off each classroom encounter that I'm continuing to work. And our new MA program was a chance for me to really just do something entirely new a few years ago. And Brittany was in the first cohort. So the guinea pigs were coming through as the first cohort, but luckily it was such a terrific group of people that it made things easy. But really committing to that idea that you will learn from this experience, to me, took a lot of pressure off each one of my lesson plans, knowing that I was going to do this better. It took me a long time to learn that and kind of accept that. And it also applies to scholarship and to writing and everything else. But I thought that idea of tracking your own learning as an instructor is a really important thing to do, and it was calming for me to recognize that. Christian Sierra has a nitty-gritty question. Common issue that I hear is that the benefits and salary of a community college professorship often is less than a high school teacher's. Is there any truth to this? I think it depends a lot on the high school and a lot on the community college and a lot on the status in terms of tenure track or adjunct. But I'm going to turn this over because Brittany, you said you were going to jump in on this.
Yes, and I'm sure Matt and Christina have ideas as well. But I don't mind being completely transparent here. I know talking about salary is kind of seen as a taboo, but I think if you are interested in going into teaching, particularly at a community college, I think it's worth noting. Excuse me. So my husband and I are both professors. My husband has been teaching, he's on a 10-year track, so he's been teaching for a very long time. He's full-time. And he makes substantially more money than I do, who works part-time. And I work at multiple different colleges, freeway flyer, as I said, picking up certain courses at different colleges. So because of that, I technically work full-time with my course load. So I teach 5 to 6 classes a semester. But I get paid hourly, if you will, and I don't get benefits or anything like that, because I'm seen as part-time at these colleges. Now, once I do get a full-time job or find a full-time job, then things are going to switch. And yes, as Dr. Murray said, it definitely depends on, salary level, your experience, what degrees you have. So if somebody with a PhD naturally gets paid more than somebody with an MA degree, depends on how long you've been with the college. But just a comparison, so I make about 40K, I would say, and my husband makes 150K. So big difference there. And that's going to be him who's been teaching for a very long time. He started off with, like me, going to different colleges. He ended up getting a full-time job at a college, at a community college. And now he has benefits. He's been working there for a very long time. And so his salary has increased with that. So I don't know how much a high school teacher makes, but 150K sounds pretty good. But sometimes you do have to start, I don't want to say at the bottom because I certainly don't feel like I'm at the bottom, but you might have to start just with teaching a couple of courses at the different colleges and gain that experience. And that's honestly a really great time to start looking at professional development and looking at those type of opportunities and start growing as an instructor and learning how to teach, like Matt said.
I can add on to that. I think there's a big difference between part-time pay that I made at the beginning of my career, which was unsustainable. That in and of itself at one institution, because you're limited to how many classes you can teach at one community college. That's why you see people teaching multiple places. Like at our institution, district-wide, you can teach for history a maximum of 3 classes, which is not enough to live off of. So that's why you see people who are teaching 2, 3, 4 institutions, teaching multiple classes in a single semester. The way that at our institution, how full-time instructors are paid is based off of a couple of things. One is every year that you teach, there is like a step increase, right? And then also it's related to your education. So the master's degree would be at the bottom of the pay scale, like master's only, but master's plus additional coursework will move you up the salary scale. And if you are all but dissertation, like ABD, or if you've advanced to candidacy, you're near the end of the pay scale. If you're a PhD, you're getting paid the highest. And so then you have these steps for every year that you teach, and then it maxes out at a certain point. But you can also compare the pay for full-time instructors and part-time instructors by Googling it, just to see out of curiosity, like how does, even within the region, you'll see a huge differential in pay. Like some community colleges for part-time instructors are paid a lot better than teaching, say, the same class at another institution that's right down the road. And then it may flip too for full-time, that same institution that doesn't pay its part-timers as well may pay their full-timers much better than another institution. And so you can actually research this. I think one of the reasons why I bring this up is that it is that motivation to continue with your education, to continue taking classes, to continue striving towards the PhD. And that's actually why so many instructors, not only are they genuinely wanting to learn, but many people will actually go on and do additional coursework or actually enter a PhD program or an EDD program once they obtain a full-time position. I think the only other thing I would just mention, I'll then bring it over to Matt, before I forget, in terms of whether it is that you're trying to get a part-time job, be persistent, send your resume out there. Don't just fill out the application to the institution, but to reach out to the department chair and, check in with them every semester. I just wanted to bring it back up to your attention that I'm interested in finding, and in being able to offer my services to your institution, and then highlight a couple of things and attach your resume so that you're front and center on their minds, because jobs can become available in a moment's notice. We just don't know, because somebody gets a full-time job, somebody quits. There's various factors. The institution may ask you to teach more classes, and so now you need more instructors. And then the only other thing is just reiterating a point that Dr. Murray made, which was to do your research on the institution, come prepared, whether it's for an interview for a part-time position or a full-time position. That is so critical, and it really is reflected in your interview. If you know that institution, that is going to really sell well. If you don't know the institution, that's going to be really apparent in the answers that you deliver. So yeah, that's it.
So I don't really have very much to add. You did mention that, the pay is not the same across the board. It will be different site to site. But community colleges in California are government agencies, so salary schedules are published. You may have to go searching for it on the website, but it's published, it's out there, so you'll know how much you would be starting out, versus once you're adding more experience or more coursework to your resume. So it is out there. Like I said, it can be found, and I would not discount some of the, I know Brittany said, you don't want to say starting at the bottom, and I don't feel like I've started at the bottom either. I feel more like I'm paying my dues. I'm starting, at a smaller site. Crafton Hills, we have two full-time history professors. Everyone else is an adjunct, but our sister site, San Bernardino Valley, has like 15 full-timers, so it's you're learning at a smaller site before you move on to a bigger one. So don't discount Victor Valley College, or if you can reach it, Palo Verde up in Barstow, or Imperial Valley out in the desert. Don't discount some of those locations. Those locations are usually looking for people frequently, because it's a place to really get your feet wet and learn how to teach.
Thanks all. I want to move toward wrapping up, and so I'll give it in just a minute. I'll give you all a chance to give any closing remarks. I'm going to throw into the chat the Google Doc that I have for this little series, and you'll see the recordings for the past events and also for the upcoming events. But as Matt said, this is a matter of public record. You can find people's salaries online. That may be salaries including part-time work and full-time work, or it's just going to be their total salary. Maybe they're also like a high school coach or middle school a teacher may also be a coach, and that will be sometimes included in. So you'll see different things supplemented there. So yeah, you can find these things out. I also would recommend, one thing I didn't do before I got into this line of work was find out what the different labor issues are. We just went through a bit of a bruiser in terms of our labor, our union fight. Those are good things to be aware of, so that you don't come in, unaware of that, unaware of who is in which union and how the union works. This is a union job for the most part, and understanding how that operates is a really important thing, whether you're going to go into the 7 to 12 level, the community college level, or go on from there. And while you're a graduate student, these are all really important things to understand and to know how they function and what your place is within them, what you want your place to be. Okay, I want to turn it over to our guests for any parting final remarks and any thoughts. Anything we didn't cover, and I do want to let everybody go in just a couple minutes.
I guess the one thing that we didn't cover, but I would just encourage people to start kind of thinking about, is that at our institution, and every community college is a little different, a lot of our classes are still taught in the online environment. So I did mention earlier, US history, being prepared to teach in the US series and the world history series, and then, ideally a specialty course. But to also investigate ways that you might prepare yourself to be to receive some sort of online certification for teaching, to see what sort of, as Brittany mentioned, professional development opportunities, but are specifically for helping prepare you to utilize Canvas. Community colleges across California use Canvas. So if there's ones that are specific to Canvas that you can take, and I know a lot of you have used it perhaps from a student perspective, but also to understand how to use it from a teacher perspective. That way, when you go into an interview, whether it's for a part-time job or a full-time job, that you're armed with that as well, and to say, I'm ready to develop an online class, I'm ready to teach in the online environment because I already have this certification in place. So I would just say that in terms of preparedness for a job at a community college, that would be one other thing to kind of add to your resume.
That gives me an opportunity to plug the SI program, because for those of you that do decide to look into SI at Cal State, we use Canvas to build, to create our own shells for whatever class we're offering instruction to. So, hey, opportunity to get that experience for free, and have a bunch of help in creating something, because that was like Christina said, that was one of the first questions I was asked when I interviewed at Crafton is, do you have any experience in Canvas? And being able to say yes, and I can create a course within the shell and manage a course through that they were like, great. And it's just something else. A lot of this is going to have tools in your toolbox. What can you break out at any given time? At our site, courses are offered to the adjuncts on a seniority basis, but that seniority also comes with, as Christina mentioned, Crafton and Valley both require a certification to teach online classes. So if you have that certification, that will bump you up the seniority list, because they'll say this person has X experience plus, whatever it is. There's also an opportunity. I know at our site, we have to be certified to teach honors classes. So something else to keep in mind, what else can you do? What other tools do you have available?
And then just to wrap up exactly what Christina and Matt has said, again, training's very, very important. It's just start building up those skill sets, whether that is through tutoring or SI, being able to get some experience developing Canvas shells, which Matt had said through the SI program, you get that experience. Or maybe if you're a TA, there's like this option where you can have a TA also kind of help with stuff. There's like a feature that they turn on, so you're either a student, faculty, or a TA. So if you have any TAing experience, maybe that would be an avenue, but really honing in on those tech skills is really essential. Like Matt said, I think that was one of the first questions that they asked me is, how do you teach in an online environment? A good majority of classes, especially after COVID, have switched into an online environment. I think right now, MSJC is at almost 50-50. Is that right, Christina? 60-40? Something like that.
We are less than 50-50 with the majority of our classes in our department online. We have a handful of classes on the ground, unfortunately.
So right there, like Christina said, it really depends on the departments, but we are seeing that huge switch since COVID, where more students are wanting to take online courses, and then instructors need to be better prepared for that. I would also highly encourage students to learn about things like equity, cultural relevancy, flipped classroom methods, active learning strategies. Anything that you can pick up to really make your application shine is super important. I cannot speak for what every single college is looking for, and I think there was that conversation of, is it better to have a PhD or a master's and go in teaching at a community college? And it really depends. Just speaking personally, I think if I was hiring if somebody had a PhD and it was very, very well educated on their subject and their specialty, and maybe a field that isn't related to US history or world history, and has no teaching experience, then I might look at a different candidate who might have a master's degree that really focused in US history courses and also has some teaching experience either through SI or tutoring. That looks like that might be just a better fit, to use the term that I think Dr. Murray had used. You just want to make sure that you fit the bill, if you will, when you're looking at teaching at community colleges. So that's where I'm going to finish.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Christina, for joining us. I'm going to throw one more time into the chat the cumulative document on future history teachers. The reason I did that is because in previous sessions that we've recorded and are shared on that document, we talked a little bit about the nitty-gritty of the application process, and there are some notes in that document. So you can go in there and find things like the EdJoin, NeoEd, NeoGov websites, and the kind of places where you're going to find these calls, and lots more information, including previous recordings on this exact theme. So you can check those out. And the CCC, Community College California Registry, that Matt noted as well. I will dig that up and I will put it into the document as well. Or Matt, if you want to email it over to me, or I can find it and I'll let you know if I don't find it. How about that? I'll track it down. But so we'll put those links, that information in that document. You can find it there. That's an hour. I don't want to take any more of your time, as much as I'd like to talk more with you all. It's always great to see you, Christina. Brittany, really nice to see you as well. Thank you, Matt. There it is. There's the link. Matt, it's always great to see you. It's been about, what, 4 hours since I saw you last online. But thanks everybody. It's always great to catch up with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share your wonderful work and your insights with our students. Please join me in giving a virtual thank you. I found that noise cancellation technology takes out applause. Did you all know this about Zoom? The smart technology takes applause out of the room. How crazy is that? I should be able to click a button and say, we're clapping now. Oh yeah, you can do this too, Brittany. Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm going to go ahead and shut down the Zoom. I'll reopen it for our MA crew after we wrap up. But thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. It was nice seeing you.
Thank you.